think fear is something that could either be a deterrent or something that could be a motivation. And for me, being somebody who's saved and a true believer that God's got me all the way through, I lean into fear and let that be a motivation.
Alisha, thank you so much for participating in a thoughtful interview. These interviews, I've been inviting experts that I feel like have a lot of wisdom, a lot of gems that they can impart with my audience. And I know that, you know, your career has been very successful. You're a business owner now. You worked in government, reported, you're a business owner. But before we get into all of that, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them what you do?
Thank you, Alex. So my name is Alisha Pina. I'm the owner of Inner Wingspan. But when I tell people who I am, I say I'm a curator of words, spoken, written, sung, and lived, because I do a little bit of everything. I don't believe in being put in a box. So I'm a singer, poet, motivational speaking speaker. I do marketing and communications. I was a former reporter for 22 years for the Providence Journal. And then I was the last Black reporter for the Providence Journal. And they still, unfortunately, have not hired a Black reporter since me. And then I was the only chocolate chip communications director for Governor Raimondo and Governor McKee. And then I left and opened Inner Wingspan last year. And that was a good way to really help people soar, other leaders of color, elevate them to a level that they should already be at, and to help businesses of color and anybody who really is in the world of rising up so there's more equity in the United States and Rhode Island. So I help all of those businesses if I have time, of course. And I do that also with all my motivational speaking, my poetry, my singing, anything that's going to uplift and make others soar, because the sky is really big enough for all of us.
So it sounds like you have a very rich background.
I do.
And they're all in different spaces, government, reporting, in the arts. You just mentioned poetry. And I'm assuming that all of that were catalysts for what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
In terms of your business. But let's start off with, how did you get into reporting? Like, what called you to get into that industry?
So, funny story, I am somebody who lives life like you're drawing without a eraser. My first TED speech was in my 20s, and that was the subject. And it's how I got into reporting. It's how I ended up at Moses Brown. I'm a graduate of Moses Brown and Boston University. But I dropped a notebook of short stories when I was younger. I was 15, on a Ripter bus on my way to Moses Brown. And an editor at the Providence Journal picked it up, read it, invaded my privacy, but my name was on it, and then said, you know, we have an internship for students of color. Do you want to apply? And of course, I was 15, 16, and I was like, how much does it pay? And he said $7 an hour. And then another $7 an hour would go towards a scholarship for school. So I was like, sign me up if this is a help to get me into college. So I started working at the Journal. I applied, and I was the last round of their interns of color. Then they got rid of the program shortly thereafter, but I stayed through high school and college, and then I was one of two hired full-time when I graduated. And I had been there 22 years, kind of worked my way up to working the State House and covering government and politics, so that was fun.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so it really just sets you up. When you just let things happen, it really does set you up for your next adventure. And everything's either a lesson or a blessing, and an opportunity for growth. And so I just took it and ran with it.
So would you say more or less like these opportunities came towards your way and you were able to identify, okay, this is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Let me hop into this.
I mean, you could be young and innocent and just kind of like go with the flow, but you do have to be smart. There's tons of opportunities. Some will be good for you, some will be bad. But with mine, I don't mind taking the risk when, I just feel it. I mean, back then I wasn't as saved and God, is this the right path for me? I was just like, do I like this? Do I not? Let's just do it. So I probably took more risk than I should have at my younger ages, but all the big risks all paid off for me, and that's not anything I did. It was just a matter of really following it and being, you feel like you know everything. I try to listen before I act on things, so at least I had some smarts at a young age to know that I don't know everything, and maybe this is a good opportunity to learn something. And so that really was what fueled me back when I was younger.
I think, a lot of folks when they're young and they come up from certain kind of backgrounds, they kind of have to figure things out as they go. And it sounds a little bit of that happened for you. And, I picked up how these opportunities kind of came to you, but I think about luck, right? If we're just thinking about luck, is when preparation meets opportunity, right? So even though the guy had to look at your writing and then make a decision like, wow, this person got what it takes. So how did you prepare for those things, right? Because there's a lot of young folks who don't really know how to build skill sets that might help them out in the future. How did you know this is what you wanted to do?
I always knew that I was nosy.
Oh.
Okay. And I call it observant now. But, I always knew that I loved talking to people and I loved writing, and I did poetry as a way of escaping, trauma from childhood and not feeling loved by everybody in family. And so my writing and my poetry was my escape. So I always had my journal with me. So the fact that I lost it, I was heartbroken. So I was more happy that somebody found it. And the fact that a job came out of that was just icing. But I had to make that conscious choice of, do I want to apply and possibly not get in? And, at 16, you're not thinking that, but all I was thinking was the money. And I was like, this is a great opportunity to get a scholarship and money towards school. And then when I started meeting everybody, and I was like, oh my God, I'm at the Providence Journal. As a kid, this is the state's only paper. So it was kind of cool to say, oh, I might work for the Journal. And so I really looked at it as like, okay, this is an experience to get. And I came home every weekend from Boston University because they said you can write on the weekends and every school break. So everybody else is going party and all that. No, I came home to work. And I was a club promoter too, so that was an experience. And I was club promoter for all the gay bars in Rhode Island, which is even more fun. Because they're just more fun. It is what it is. And so I was like, I don't swing that way, but let's go. This is a lot of fun. Everything set me up because that's my first marketing. I had to come up, how do I get these people in this club? I was like, I need to learn more about them. What do they like? And so being nosy, observant, really helped. And it showed that this was could be a career out of being somebody who's very observant, who cares a lot about how other people feel and wants them to be at their best selves. And I realized those were all things that somebody in communications and reporting and marketing does. And so I just was like, how do I get more experiences to get better at that? And so I really just looked for them at that point. How do I sit and talk with a stranger and get over the uncomfortableness of that? So I would sit at, coffee tables and just say, hey, what you reading over there? And just butt in. But the conversations that you get from just meeting people and just listening is just so much fun. And you never know who you're going to get. I actually did a series for the Journal when I said everybody has a story worth telling. And they said, I don't believe that. I said, all right, then let me do it. And so I would walk outside, walk downtown, find somebody, and they ended up being fascinating. This one person, I'll never forget, an old guy, and he was eating chiclets. He looked like he was homeless. White guy, long gray hair, and he was playing the piano, eating chiclets like it was candy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? And he had silver bracelets on, and he ended up being a famous jazz musician from the 70s. And he lived in somebody's basement, and he just made art out of people's trash. And it ended up getting me a state award for writing.
Wow.
And it was a great profile. You never would have known it when he's just walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like a homeless guy. But I realized there's got to be levels to him and layers. And he was so much fun. I always wonder where he is now, because he was just the coolest thing. And I'll never forget, Frida Squire was the photographer. We spent hours, normally in interviews like an hour or two. We were there for like 5 hours because we were just, we were sitting in the basement of somebody's house just learning about him. And he was that incredible. And then I got to sing with him, and that was fun. It was just a really cool interview, and it shows in your writing because I got an award. So
I think through just from the brief moment that we have, right? It just sounds, you're a very brave person, right? First of all, these opportunities come your way, and you're just like, let's just try it, right? This door opens up, let's just try it. I want to improve on my communication. Let's go talk to this individual, right? You know, a lot of folks don't have the capacity to do that, right? They have fears, right? They feel afraid. And I know off screen we had a conversation about how you feel about fear. And I'm just wondering, did that play anything with you accepting these things? Was there like a little fear, and you were like, you know what, this is where I should go?
Well, people feel, there's two things. One, everybody's human. There's no one better than the other. There's no such thing as perfect. So one, I don't believe in people with privilege. So I will test that. If I feel like somebody thinks they have privilege, I will probably make them uncomfortable, because I will literally just start talking to them. Like, if you think I'm too good, you're too good for me, then I will kind of spark a conversation on purpose.
Okay.
So yes. Two, I think fear is something that could either be a deterrent or something that could be a motivation. And for me, being somebody who's saved and a true believer that God's got me all the way through, I lean into fear and let that be a motivation. So that took a while, and I still have lots of insecurities. I call myself flawsome. I'm awesome with flaws. So I really just lean into fear, and I was like, all right, what could really happen? God's got me fully. He's truly in control. So why not just lean in and see what's going to happen? And so I really just I don't always have the confidence, but I really like showing that that's a confident, you should. But as leaders of color, and as a female leader of color, there are so many people who try to put you down, or there can only be one Black woman up there. And I don't believe that's true. So not only do I strive to stay up there, but I also try to bring people up with me. And I really just say, just what's the worst that could happen? And sometimes it's good to think about the worst, because then you already have it out of the way. If that happens, what are you going to do? And then what? And then what? So when I talk to young people, I say, all right, what do you think is going to happen? Let's go through all the scenarios. What is your best possible outcome and your worst? And then at least you know it, so you'll know how to handle it. So then if it does come, you can respond better. And it's not like it's right there because you've already thought it through. But if you're not thinking advance and start thinking, and really, we're told all these things about where we should be, and this was gifted to you because you're a person of color. No, we work hard everything that we do, and you really just got to claim that and start letting, we talked about this earlier, the devil sit at your table by your negative thoughts, by what people are feeding into you. Really, you're your own person. And if you don't think you're enough and you love yourself and you don't speak it into existence, it's never going to happen. And so I'm not perfect. This is a daily battle. I have to wake up every morning and say I'm enough. And some days I don't believe it, but I still try to find those pockets of joy through the day.
So from the conversation, a lot of references of like spirituality has come up. And I think it's important to kind of talk a little bit about that, right? Because you said that you weren't really saved before you accepted some of the callings, the devil sitting at our table, just so the audience can understand the frame in your belief, because it sounds like it really did empower first your career and now also your business, right?
I think, so I've always sang gospel, but I think gospel music was my only church in the beginning. And so I was like, I don't need church. I sing gospel. So I at least love God and I hear it through the music. And then I was like, oh crap. I kind of need a little bit more than that. Community, and so I started going Ebenezer Church, and then I was baptized there. But I needed more. And then I started going to King's Cathedral, where they truly believe that you are in a partnership in that. You're not just a congregant, and it's not just church on Sunday. It's church every day, and you have to be committed to God. And so I truly try to live that. And so I start my day with grounding myself through prayer, through scripture, through asking for forgiveness and asking God to guide my day. And I think that has really that's happened in the last 3 to 4 years. And it really has shaped me into, there's less stress. Because if you're not worried about what's going to happen to you because you have an overhaul protector, then it makes life a little easier. But it really takes work and daily commitments and recommitments to God, because it's not easy to be a Christian in this world with all the negative and all the people saying, how is God letting this happen? And so I had to really just say, his plan is perfect. And today is a new day to show God's love. And you don't have to jam it through people's, I hate that. All I need to do is be me, because God's going to show through me.
You being a person of faith, right? The people within the church world, I'm going to just say the church world, they have a really hard time like reconciling some of the career spaces that you've been in, using their faith to start businesses or using their faith and working in government. I know from my personal experience, it was a little tough to do. But it sounds like God has been guiding you through, even when you were younger, right? Even when you were making decisions that you supposedly you didn't know, but a still voice was telling you.
Of course.
Right?
The whole devil on the right and whatever good and evil on your thing, I really think God talks to you through you and your thoughts if you let God lead. And so it's a matter of shutting out all the negativity. And so we have a business ministry at our church. And anybody who is an entrepreneur or a business owner can join the business ministry, and we support each other. It may not be a business that is Christian focused, but if your decisions and your thread and you lead like a person of God, it becomes part of how you move in your business. So that's all we teach, is how do we support and do it in a Christianly way. And so with me, I never was a true Bible believing Christian all the time, but now I see that it was always in me. I just didn't know it. And all of those people telling me this is the way to go, or the decisions I made, that was probably God guided, and I had no clue. And I love that now when you look back and it's like, I would have never made that decision on my own. I was 15. But something told me this is the opportunity. And whether that's good upbringing from my mother, my mom raised me as a single mother, and I saw her tenacity, even through mental illness. I think maybe that was there, maybe it was God there, but whatever it wasn't me. It wasn't me by myself. God gives you wisdom, God gives you talents. I mean, I wouldn't be a poet or a singer or a good marketing guru without God giving me those talents. So now I just realized, some of the other day I sang in St. Croix, and a black man came up to me and said, "Can I worship you?" after I sang. And I said,
hold on. He didn't say like, can I follow you?
No,
can
he
I
said,
learn?
can I worship you? And I stopped and I said,
Wow.
you can worship the God who gave me the talents. That's way too much responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm good, but thank you.
Wow.
And then I got a gig later on, and I was like, I don't live in St. Croix. But to go to St. Croix on vacation, sing with a band, and then get gigs in 2024, and you weren't looking for them, that's not me. It's God's talent leading me to new opportunities.
It reminds me of that Ecclesiastes scripture where it says, you know, a man determines his plan in his heart, but God determines the steps.
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of sounds like you have ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of sounds like generally speaking, a lot of folks have ideas, that have skill sets, and this is what kind of bleeds into the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right. Attracting what you want, but it's your skill sets that's actually attracting the folks.
I mean, being kind, loving to listen to other people and learn about other cultures, those are perfect skills for marketing and comms. You cannot get through this career with just your thoughts. Do you imagine if there was just, I love my sister, I love me. Okay, fine. But if there was 100 of you and nothing else in the world, what would that world be like? This is why I say equity is so important. You can't have thousands of you and think that this world's going to be great. You need the diversity. You need the equity. The statistics show that equity brings better ideas, more solutions to problems. If you just had one upbringing and one type of person, you're never going to get far in this world. And for anybody to think that that's how it needs to be, and I won't go into whole Trump and Republicans, but that wayward one-way thinking is just the wrong narrative. It's false, and it's not what built our country. I mean, our country did grow off of racism, but there's diversity in there. We wouldn't have half the stuff we do, and you know, our history books will not show it. All the things that Black people brought, or Asian people brought, or Latinos brought, none of that's in the history books, but it exists. And the things white people learned when they came here from indigenous, none of that's in the history books, but we exist because of diversity. We thrive because of diversity. You don't go to a restaurant and just stick to your type of cuisine. That's why you go out to restaurants.
Exactly.
Stuff you can't cook. We wouldn't have Peruvian and Thai and Mexican tacos, not American. So Taco Tuesday wouldn't be here without diversity.
I mean, I don't know how to live without them.
So I try to show that way. If you argue with everybody rather than showing them what we have more in common, it's just a longer way to get to the same result. Just show what the similarities, and show the flavor that it brings to this world. And maybe that will help bring people to realize and appreciate equity a little bit more.
And, you know, you mentioned this would be perfect, right? Because you went from a reporter, you worked in government, you also brought up government. So this is like a perfect opportunity to kind of talk about that transition.
Yeah.
Right? And diversity, especially working in the heart of that.
Of course.
Right?
Well, yeah. Media is, the journalism world and media is a dying, some people say is a dying profession. Newspapers are getting smaller and smaller, eliminating, and media is never going to go anywhere. You need somebody to tell you the news. You need a watchdog out there. And I know everybody thinks it's going to be replaced by blogs. Maybe it will, but there's always going to be some type of media, and there needs to be. But I realized that I had reached a point. I had just gotten a national award for our Race in Rhode Island series, which was a collective award on all of the isms here in Rhode Island. And we said whatever we did every Sunday, we did a Race in Rhode Island piece for the whole year. And then I was like, what else is there for me? And I realized they were putting so much pressure on their remaining reporters, and people were getting burned out. and I had been there 22 years, and I'm sitting there fighting for equity in a place that only had one of me. So I knew that I needed something else. So after a fight, I walked out and I put on Facebook, there's no more respect for me, hashtag resume ready. And by the end of that day, I had 2 job offers. And I orchestrated how I left. I gave my 2 weeks notice. I still love the journal and respect the journal, but this was what I needed for me. And then I started working for Governor Raimondo at her Department of Human Services, which I knew was the government that serves the most people of color and the most vulnerable people. And it's not just people of color, but most vulnerable. And so I said, this is where I can help. And so I went in and, you know, it's funny, I was writing about all of their trauma and their problems. And now I'm in the department leading communications. So I said, this is my way in. And so I helped Governor Raimondo with the Equity Council, with Department of Human Services, and then when COVID came, I helped Department of Health with all COVID messaging for communities of color. That was tough. How do you communicate to some communities and cultures that fear government? You need to get a shot. Wait, what? After Tuskegee, after this, after being in another country and all they did was dictatorship. So I had to figure out, one, how to get it in 13 different languages. We ended up communicating everything in 13 languages. Normally people just do English and Spanish. But we used data to show what languages were most prevalent in those communities that were hardest hit. And we used 13 different languages. And then it was like, you need to put them in trusted people. So we had bodega owners, and the ads were there, and we taught them. So it was like train the trainer. But as a marketing comms person, if you didn't realize what the flaws were in the communities and what the issues were for people, you have to talk to people. That's how you figure out what's the best way to market to them. And this was life or death. How do you get to Central Falls? People living in, you know, big houses with 3 floors of like 20 people. You have to get to the elder, and convince them. Or convince the young one who can nag the elders. So you need to find that. And everyone's different. Everybody communicates different. So do you do it by just speaking? Do you do it with more visuals? So I really thought that all the way through. And every decision was a different one for the community.
And I think you need to have that. Not only did you have like the skill set, the expertise, you kind of have to also have that like that lived experience, or have a relationship with that to understand why they would still reference like the Tuskegee experiment, right? Why folks would reference that in relations to the vaccine. And I remember hearing a lot of that and seeing a lot of that when I helped Councilwoman Castillo set up the first vaccine clinic in Ward 9. And luckily, we did get the people to participate. But you know what we had involved? We had churches involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had Juan Pablo
Trusted
Duarte.
sources.
Yeah, the Juan Pablo Duarte Community Club. They were involved.
Yeah.
And Councilwoman Castillo, she's Hispanic, Dominican. In the south side of Broad Street, where we know there's the constituents, a lot of them are Dominican. So it makes a lot of sense.
And it doesn't work if you don't listen to them. I hate when people feel like they know it all. Marketing people may have that all in it, especially politicians. They're, all right, well, they hired, you know, they elected me, so I must know. No, you still need to listen. Your whole term, you need to listen. Because you're going to grow. I grow from every person I speak to. I'm growing just from this conversation. If you come in with that attitude, I don't know everything, and there's something that you may have that I may need for my next step, my next elevation. And so I listen for that. And I take the time to really let somebody else share. And so in those circumstances where it's life and death and it's communities of color, I want them to thrive. And so hearing their issues, sitting with them, not just for the picture, the hug the baby moments, no. You need to like sit with them and really learn them because they're important people too.
Mm-hmm.
And if our elected leaders and our appointed leaders did that more, we'd be in such a better place. Mm-hmm. I know everybody thinks I should run for like mayor and stuff. I don't think that's my calling. But I really, truly believe that this world would be better if people listened, shut up more, and just listen to other people. Because there's some gems. Mm-hmm. Some of these young folk that I mentor, they have great ideas, and no one ever listens to them. They have great ideas for school. We know our education system is broken. How about listening to them a little bit? Because they got great ideas. Mm-hmm. And not everybody learns the same. So there should be individualized education plans for everybody. I know that's a lot of work for school departments, but if you individualize the education plan for that student, then that student has a better chance to be a great leader in the future.
I mean, it makes sense because it would be geared towards their interests. It would take, account. It is a lot of work, but it would take into account of, all their nuances and stuff like that.
I'm assuming there are school districts that all students have IEPs. Mm-hmm. What's the best way of learning? Or at least diversify your learning techniques. Mm-hmm. So kids that learn better from visuals or by creativity can be applied in math for different ways. Mm-hmm. Like just have different learning styles. Mm-hmm. But if you have all the same teachers and they're all teachers that are white and not a diverse amount of teachers, you're not going to get that diversity. Mm-hmm. Different age groups, you can't discriminate even on the age levels. Like mm-hmm. there's some wisdom in some of the older teachers, and then bring in a new one. And that's kind of cool. And they learn from each other. Mm-hmm. But you have to be willing to do it. Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's how institutions are kind of set up to work, right? You have multi-generational folks just working together, trying to pass along that information. And we talked a lot about your career, your successes. I mean, you've done a lot. And we haven't even touched onto your business yet. We haven't, but now by this point, the viewers definitely know that you're the expert in what you do in your industry, right?
I try. Yeah.
And you learn every day, right? But tell us, how did you continue that work in your business? Like, what are you doing now?
Yeah.
Is it a little different?
So I realized when I was at the state that there wasn't as much value. They didn't value as much as I thought they should have. And so I said to God, should I leave? And, this is middle of pandemic. And I heard of a lot of people quitting their jobs. I was like, I wonder if that's what I should do. But I was in Equity Leadership Initiative, which you're a member of. You're a cohort 3. I was in the OGs. I'm a cohort 1. And I'll never forget, Angie and Coma said, use this experience as a way of being more selfish. What is it that you want? And so I realized I wasn't happy and I was burnt out and I was doing 80 hours a week, but it's during the middle of COVID. And I wanted to save lives, do what I can. But I realized I was hurting myself. And so I said, God, give me a sign. And somebody asked me to do a press release for them, write a press release. And they cash apped me $500 to write a press release. And I was like, dude, I can do a press release in my sleep for like 40 minutes. I don't need, and I responded back because it's a friend of mine, 500 is too much.
Yeah. Wow.
And they said, oh, if you're going to be a business owner, don't ever say that to somebody. Take the $500. And so I took the $500. The next day, somebody else asked me to do a press release and put $500 in my Cash App. So in 2 days, I made $1,000 for less than 2 hours of work. And I said, oh, Beautiful. If that's not a sign from God that I can do this. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to quit. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm leaving a high-profile job, making really good money, and I'm 43. But I leaned into the fear, bet on self and God, and opened Inner Wingspan at the start of 2022. And first year was incredible. I made the same amount of money. And then this year I made more than that, and I work less hours. and I won't say how less, but much less hours.
The dream.
Yeah, and I still get to sing and do poetry, and I've been featured every single month somewhere in some state, either with poetry or singing. I did my first keynote speech this year, and so this is just year 2. And I have clients as big as Rhode Island Foundation and then some smaller clients. And it's just an incredible way to live, where you're literally just helping people every day by doing something you love. And that's really what the career everybody should choose, is something they love to do. If you're not loving what you do, you may not be in the career that's best suited for you. And life is not just your career. You can't take that with you to heaven or hell, depending on where you're going. But you can't take it with you. You can't take possessions with you.
That is true.
So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm 2 years in, and 2024 is going to be huge. I may be on a TV show. We won't talk about that. And my book will be hopefully out by the end of the year. And it's a fun book about bad dating. It's really inspirational about a woman who doesn't love herself enough. So she looks for it in all the wrong men. I don't have a title yet because that makes it really real. And I don't think I'm ready for it to be real yet. But it's real. It's happening. And and I've been working on the book for 5 years. And I used all of my bad dates plus several other women from Rhode Island who started giving me their bad dates. And so this poor lead character goes through it. Her name's Nazuri, which means beautiful in Swahili. She goes through it, but it's really just her trying to find herself. And it's very much my life, just in a different form. So excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. You also did share with me the potential show. So I know when we come back, when we have the second interview, at that point you would have already won. So everybody could tell you. Singing is so important. Just like my poetry growing up, when trauma happened, music and poetry really was healing for me. And so many people use music as a way of escape, as a way of just enjoying life. And I live and breathe singing. So to be able to do that as a living too, and to use my poetry, and a lot of my poetry has singing in it. So that's a lot of fun. And, I just watched Color Purple the other day, and they turned it into almost like a musical, and it's just like, it was so good. And I said, see, that's stuff I would love to do. Yeah. That's been, 10, 15 years. And I know people say, oh my God, you're already 45. Like, you don't have much left in you. Look, please, the average age is growing for people of color. Yeah. And you can live. I had a grandma that lived to 105. And she was a feisty little thing, and I love every bit of it. And you really can start over and do what you dream at any age. And I know people just say, oh, I'm too old for that. Please, I left at 43. So, and I don't believe that I should have done it earlier, even though my life is great now. I think everything happens for a reason, and there's a pace and a timing for everything. And so all those little lessons and blessings and steps, from journalism to government relations and marketing to entrepreneur marketing, those needed to happen for me to have the 2024 that I'm going to have. And everything. And I think just to add on to your point, usually when folks kind of bring up the age, you're too old or you're too young, they tend not to be high performers. Yeah. I'm not, no disrespect, but every person that, at least that I would read about, people that I would respect, I'm assuming it's the same thing for you. Yeah. They're all dreamers, right? Yeah. Never let the dream die.
I've heard it all. I've heard maybe you should hone in on just one thing that you're good at and perfect that. Maybe you're too young, and this is not something women do. Black people shouldn't cry, especially not in front of white people. Like, we're human. Emotions are part of who we are. And, vulnerability isn't a negative. So I try to overshare, which is why my life is like an open book. And the only person upset about that is my mother, because I probably tell too much of her business. But, it's really, if we had more people who were vulnerable, then people who are at the top wouldn't feel like they have to be perfect. That stress level of being at the top wouldn't maybe be as stressful if you realize we all have flaws. No one is perfect. And that person at the top has had your moments too.
Absolutely.
That really shows that we're more alike than we are different. And that's another way of helping with equity and diversity and why it's so important. But I need people to be a little more open. I'm not saying be as open as I am, because that's a lot. And you have to have really thick skin. And I don't have that all the time. So there's a lot of times where I'm in tears, or I'm comparing, or, and there's some envy somewhere. I'm still working on those aspects of my life. But you need to open up a little bit. Listening, opening up. I think those are the two biggest things that every human should do more of.
And I think that's part of your success, though. I think being able to be vulnerable attracts a tribe. I'm just going to say it, for lack of a better word. And I think people respect that because, people wake up with themselves every day. They know that they're not perfect. They look in the mirror. They understand, okay, there's cracks here, there's flaws here, and things like that. We definitely need more transparent leaders and people that are just willing to voice things.
I don't think people would have realized that just 10 years ago. I never even looked in the mirror because I didn't think I was pretty enough. And so I would walk past it, or I'd pick words up so I wouldn't have to see my face. And now I love myself enough to where I can look in and say, dude, you're beautiful today. And you're enough today. And I still get emotional, and it's not every day. I don't feel that way, but I'm getting there. And no one would ever think that with me. And they're like, oh, I said, it's more thing. You don't fake it till you make it. You kind of, you just kind of really turn it until you believe it. And so I was just like, all right, we're going to keep doing it. It's that negative thoughts. That really, the devil at the table. The devil at my table is my negative thoughts. And I need to keep on inviting him to dinner. Go away. I didn't ask for you to be here. I know I'm enough. I know I'm loved.
And I think that's something that a lot of folks, especially coming in from, generally speaking, from neighborhoods, urban neighborhoods. Right? Always have that mindset because we grew up with the spirit of survivability, right? With the spirit of lack. And we definitely are resilient, but those lacking or being so limited in what you have, you start making up these false narratives, and you do start trying to keep up with the Joneses, because now you get a taste of it, and now you want to, I want more of it, but I can't get it. So you create this
competition, and you'll never create generational wealth if you're buying everything.
Exactly. It's just continuing the curse.
You're just trying to buy everything because you never had it, and I get that. There are things where I just want it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to buy that. Do you really need it? Can that money go to somewhere else? But I truly believe I don't call it work-life balance anymore. I call it work-life harmony. And the same thing with money. There's a harmony with that. You need to do ABC. I know exactly. I'm so smart would be the right word. I'm so conscious of how much I need to make to pay my bills, and how much do I need to make to live my fun life, and then what I need to do to give to community. So I have a number that I need to hit every month. And so I find the clients that'll pay that. Everything else is bonus, and that bonus usually goes to the community. But now I'm starting to realize some of that needs to come to me, and I need to enjoy life.
Of course.
But that's a lot for me. That it took everything for me to go to St. Croix 2 weeks ago, because I was like, there's still work that needs to be done. And one of my clients said to me, you need a break. You cannot keep giving half empty. And so I went really to just recharge. And then I got to sing and hang out with a whole bunch of locals. And I bought something for me, which was shocking. And I was like, okay, this is cool. It's not so bad to take a vacation every now and then.
Got to enjoy the life.
Yeah.
You got one. And two things.
Sure.
I know you have something, and I definitely would like to hear a little bit of your poetry or singing, because you're a really good singer.
Thank you.
Like, a really good singer.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, before we even get into that, I just want to ask about your business, because it sounds like your business, at least through that transition, right? You took that leap of faith, and then things just started, being a blessing to you. You doubled up on your salary. You're working a lot less.
Yeah.
So at a mental level, like mentally speaking, how has that transition and changed? I definitely want to encourage more folks to literally pursue their own business.
So, like I said, Inner Wingspan is a marketing and communications business. So I do consulting for clients, but I also teach. I teach a writing for justice class for Youth Build. Anything that's going to help make a person better, and I say make a person soar, or give them that lift or that little nugget of truth that's going to be a little bit of a spark. And so a lot of the times when I do empowerment speaking, which is also part of the business, I try to make sure I'm leaving people with, one, me being authentic in who I am, so they can see that a woman of God, a Black woman, a woman from Rhode Island can make it and still has flaws and is still making it. I want to leave that with them, but I also want to do some bit of wisdom to take a chance, or to love yourself a little more, to let the haters hate. That the kids love when I say that, because it's always going to happen. There's going to be missteps. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be people who absolutely will lie to your face and really want the worst for you, but will smile. And you need to have enough discernment or confidence in you to keep it moving. And if I can leave that with people, even not the ones I'm speaking to, but even on a day-to-day interaction with a stranger, there's something in just talking to a person that may help. So my whole business has been these 2 years trying to find that in every day that I live. And it may not be something that comes with a paycheck, but I consider that still part of Inner Wingspan. And so I think how I act and how I portray who I am is part of my business. And that's that personal brand that's so important. When I was teaching writing for justice to the kids, I said, your personal brand is everything you like on Facebook and TikTok, who you hang with, what you wear, what's on the back of this. If there's, and I did that to one of the students. I said, what's on the back of your phone? And it was an obit for a grandparent. And I said, you know what that shows me? This is marketing. This is personal branding. It shows me she loved that person. It shows me that she has compassion. And she started crying. But I said, you need to be able to see that every way you move, every action is being watched by somebody. And you don't have to let that affect your life, but you need to be cognizant of it. Because how you show up is how people are going to see you. And I gave them a perfect example. I said, if a homeless person who looks really raggedy comes in and he wants a job, and he says, and you see him initially, you may not give him that job because of the way he looks. And then I said to him, but what if you're the person sitting on the other side, and he says to you, I know I don't look the right way, but I have a family, I'm currently unhoused, and I will be your best worker if you just give me a chance, and I will clean up with the first paycheck. Would you be more willing to give him the job?
Absolutely.
And every one of the kids said yes. And I said, why? Because he spoke from the heart, and he spoke from a place of confidence.
Mm.
It's how you talk, how you show up, and everything matters. And unfortunately, there's going to be judgment all the time. But that's how you maneuver. You either use that as fuel, just like fear, or you make it a deterrent, and that could turn you away from your next big elevation. So why not just lean into it? Rip the Band-Aid off, just go. But it's a tough world to live like that. But I think for me, it benefited. It may not work for everybody, but it definitely benefited for me.
I think the alternative is dying with the regret of what is.
Status quo.
Right?
Yeah, who wants to live in a stagnant life? I won't even date a guy who don't have at least a dream.
Yeah.
I'm not saying have a 5-10 year plan. That'd be great. I am single, everybody. But you know, at least have a dream.
Yes.
Don't give up on your dreams just because there's tons of things stacked against you. Find the crack and crack it wide open. And find people who support you. Mentors is such a big deal. And it may be a teacher, it may be an older person, it may be a friend. Your mentor can come in different shapes and sizes, and you can have more than one. But somebody's got to be speaking life into you, and you got to be speaking life into somebody else. Pass it forward. I don't think I would be who I am if I'm not teaching somebody else. But that's just me.
You got to find ways to give back, and I think all of it comes back to me. You just sound like a servant leader. Excuse me.
Thank you.
And I think a lot about Dr. Miles Monroe. Excuse me. He passed away, but he was a preacher, minister, and he would teach global leaders, right? I mean, presidents, state legislators, and stuff like that. So I kind of get that vibe off of you.
Oh,
Cool.
I don't know Miles Monroe, but he sounds like a fun person.
You should check him out. He's intellectual, and I really, what I admire of him, the same thing that I admire for you, is being able to translate like the spirituality into practicalities, right? Being able to say, oh, I don't like myself, but being guided through the work to take action and say, well, maybe I feel this way, but I still got to do what I have to do anyways, and kind of push through that. And one thing that you referenced a lot, I know, like poetry your art has been like an outlet of expression.
Of course.
And I would like to hear your poetry.
Cool.
I want to see what you got going on, and maybe you can give me an autograph.
You have an autograph when you buy my book.
When I buy your book and a couple. Okay. When that happens, I know you mentioned next year, correct?
Hopefully. So apparently, one of my mentors said I need a book agent, I need an editor, I need a publishing company. All of that's in the works. And I was like, can I finish the book first?
Like get out the way.
But yeah, I need to really put some more effort into the book because I know it's going to be a bestseller. Just speaking that into existence. But everybody who's read a chapter or two has said, oh my God, please finish the book. So yeah, I'm excited to finally really get it out there. And I know last year I said it was going to be out this year. This year I'm saying it, but I'm like realize that this is not a hobby. As my bishop always says to me, this is not a hobby, this is an assignment. And this is going to help. And so I need to get this done. So I need to prioritize. I think that's one of the things I'm going to focus on for 2024 is prioritizing what I want to make sure my clients are happy, but I also need to be following my purpose.
Your assignment.
Yeah, and do my assignment. So I know that book is part of that. And I know that's going to open up more doors for more speaking engagements to help more. So I think I need to get it done. Yeah.
We're praying for you.
Work on it. Yeah, thank you.
We're praying for you. We want you to win.
Yeah.
You definitely are going to win. You spoke that. And, let's get a sample of your work.
Okay. All right. So this piece is called MAGA. What you talking about, Willis? And for you young people, you may not know that reference, but it's from an older show. was it different strokes maybe? I don't know what show it is. But it's an older show where a kid used to always say, "What you talking about, Willis?" So it starts with a song, so don't be surprised. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America! No, really, America. What is up with a lot of you? Can't you see that color is embraced in that song? A song made more famous by Ray Charles, a blind black man. He couldn't view the amber or the purple, but his soul knew that color made things special, better. Our flag, the one now stripped of its patriotism and instead symbolizing hate, the swag for the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, that swag, our flag, has red and blue in it, but it is exclusively for whites only. America doesn't run on Duncan. America runs on racism. You continue to do the melanated wrong. Censor, eliminate, hide, hang, shoot, enslave, rob, and steal our music, our clothes, our hairstyles, even our spectacular vernacular. But I thought you didn't want us. Maybe just some of us then? The quiet ones, the obedient ones, the cotton picking, making our food, nanny our kids ones. You may have made George Floyd breathless. A knee to the neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. But we are hella more. More than your lies, more than your opinions, more than your fear. So let me tell you about who we are. We're resilient, brilliant, one in a million. We are the stars you see everywhere. Coco Gauff, Steph Curry, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Misty Copeland. I can go on and on. MLK, Patti LaBelle, Tyler Perry, Shirley Chisholm. Again, we're everywhere. But you steady trying to erase us. Bring us back, but I'll tell you what, we know the true history. That color is what makes America great. Color is what makes America beautiful. So every time you listen to that song, remember the blue sky and our green earth. It's spacious enough for me and you. There you go. Cool.
Okay. I did, how long have you been doing poetry for?
I started poetry. So my dad was kind of like a Black Panther here in Rhode Island.
Okay.
He was very militant and he did poetry, but he divorced my mom when he was 8, when I was 8.
Okay.
And I tried to connect with him by doing poetry. He was the first Black firefighter of East Providence, sued the city in 1971, I think, to be the first Black firefighter with 2 other Black men. And so I kind of pulled that in as a way of connecting. And so I had been doing poetry ever since, and really just played around with poetry. It just spoke to me. It was just a way of writing that I heard loud and clear in my thoughts, and how it was a good way to release that, and singing. I remember so many days I just would sit and just try to make up songs to speak it through. And poetry and singing are so similar. A lot of songs are just poetry to music. So, it was a natural thing to do. But I never took it seriously. And then in the last 2-3 years, I really started writing more. And then realized there was all this great poetry scene here in Rhode Island. Like dope poetry. There are some great poets. So now I help DeMott Combs, Orange Live. He runs Tell Your Truth. And Spoken Easy, and there's just so many great poetry venues. Like every week there's poetry somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started jumping on open mics, and then I started getting featured this year. And I was just like, this is kind of cool. Like, people make a living out of this. And so now I fight for them to get more money.
I think it's a perfect way to tie in all your skill sets, and you know, you being a business owner now, having the capacity to really express yourself and be the better version of you, because even that poetry blessed even just us, right? Before it's gonna even get to the audience, like it was a treat just for us. And yeah, I want to close it up because you gave us.
We could keep going for hours. Yes, I got it. And y'all got stuff to do. You got dreams to fulfill.
Absolutely, and you're gonna be back anyways. So
I appreciate it.
absolutely, this has been a real treat. All the information, just the wisdom that you dropped from your career, from your faith, and all that. I know a lot of people are gonna draw from it and learn from it. And until next time, when you won that singing competition and you have released your book. You know, we'll definitely have you here, and I'll make sure to have all your social media links and all that stuff so that folks can also find you and get involved in supporting like the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining.
Having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You were great. Alex. Thank you.